Our daily Bible reading for December 2nd. Our reading today comes from 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3, we'll begin reading in verse 1. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, when they see respectful and pure conduct. Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. But this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And you are her children if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless, for to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. For whoever desires to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Now, who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey, when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were brought safely through water. Baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, and powers having been subjected to him. A few thoughts for today. As a child, I loved to play the game with pictures called Connect the Dots. You know the game. Seemingly random numbered dots were placed on a page, and after you connected them consecutively, the picture appeared. It is also a saying used metaphorically to cause people to use their own logic to come to conclusions that are obvious once they have followed that line of thought. Sometimes in our postmodern world, we are discouraged in the philosophy of this thinking from coming to conclusions based on clear thinking. A young person might come to believe that his or her fate has been determined by the action of others, in which they can blame others rather than take responsibility for their actions. Some in prison blame society for their incarceration and fail to accept that they made wrong choices. Peter's passages today draw a clear conclusion that connects behavior with quality of life. His quote from Psalm 34, verses 12 through 16, tell us that if we do A, then we can expect B to happen. We don't want to sit in judgment, as did Job's friends when they assumed because calamity had come upon him that he had done evil or had sin in his life. There are times when God chooses hardships and trials to bring about his purpose and will in the lives of the saints. Adam Clarke's commentary lists those things that if a person wishes to live long and prosperously, he must, number 1, he must refrain from evil speaking, lying, and slandering. Number 2, he must avoid flattery and fair speeches, which cover hypocritical or wicked intentions. He must avoid evil and keep going away from evil. He must do good. He must walk in the way of righteousness. And lastly, he must live peaceably with all men, seek peace where it has been lost, restore it where it has been broken, pursue it where it seems to be flying away. If one has encountered strife in their life all their days, perhaps it is time for a long, hard look at their heart. It may be time to connect some dots in their own life and see if some corrections need to be made. Question of the day. Is the concept of reaping what we sow a difficult one to grasp? And finally, a thought to meditate on today. When a person lives a righteous life, he or she can expect God to hear their prayers and answer accordingly. A wicked person needn't think that their prayers will be answered. Those are our thoughts for today, December the 2nd.